The main character, the MC, the protagonist, drives the plot forward. It's kind of what they do. They are who the story revolves around, so of course, they're the most important character in the show. Many times, the story may even be named after them. They are likable and somewhat relatable, at least, so we can see through their eyes. However, at least for me, they are very rarely my favorite character. 9 out of 10 times, maybe, my favorite character won't be the antagonist. It'll be one of the side characters. Secondary or side characters are very interesting because while they don't normally really move the plot forward, many times they will have interesting abilities, personalities, whatever. They aren't as constrained by the rules of the main character, I guess. They're also not in the spotlight as much as the MC, so when it's their time to shine, it means more. When Kakashi from Naruto gets to fight, it's exciting because you don't know how it'll go and you don't see him fight as much. Whereas if it's Naruto himself, you more or less know how it'll turn out. Many times, side characters will also get more personal development than the protagonist. In my mind, no one embodies this more than Goku and Vegeta. I love Goku. Like many shonen protagonists, he's a lovable idiot until it really matters. That being said, he doesn't change a whole lot through the series. He's a goofy, kind-hearted, strong guy from beginning to end. On the other hand, you have Vegeta. Vegeta, at least in my eyes, is a much more interesting character than Goku is. In fact, he's my favorite character in the entire series. When we first meet Vegeta, he's an arrogant ass, just following the orders of a tyrant. Now, he's an arrogant ass who would die for his friends. Seriously though, when we first meet Vegeta, he at least seems kind of like a generic strong guy for our hero to take down. But over time, he may not be a good guy, but we understand he isn't the ultimate evil that we once thought he was. Then, over the course of the seasons, he grows and learns. He goes from someone we hate to someone at least I love. We watch in the show as he slowly grows to care about the rest of the cast. And they grow to care about him, as do we. He goes from this narcissistic character to someone that ultimately dies, who set himself for these people that he once despised. Of course, this is Dragon Ball Z, so he does come back eventually, but that doesn't change the growth he had as a character and continues to have to this day. In Dragon Ball Super, he defends Bulma when she's hit in the face by the God of Destruction, a fight he knows he cannot win. And he even dances on stage to amuse the same God, an act the prideful Saiyan would have never done years prior. Then you compare that to Goku, who's pretty much been the same character from the first time we saw him. Sure, as a kid, he was more like a regular Saiyan, but that barely even comes up. I love Goku, but he's pretty much always the prototypical shonen protagonist, a lovable idiot until he needs to be serious. Vegeta is far from the only secondary character who is more interesting than the main character though. In fact, at least for me, it's actually pretty rare that the main character is my favorite character, at least in anime and manga. Another example would be Naruto. Sure, he has more growth than Goku, but that's not really a lot to write home about. On the other hand, a character like Kakashi is much more interesting to me. He is shown to have an immense amount of growth. Interestingly enough though, most of this growth is shown through flashbacks, much of which happens before the show even begins. He was much more cocky as a child, but through a series of unfortunate events, he grows to trust and depend on those around him. Sure, he may be a genius and one of the stronger characters, but he gains the humility to know there are some things that no one can do alone. I actually think one of Naruto's greatest strengths and weaknesses as a story are the side characters. There are so many interesting characters I want to know more about, but they end up getting lost in the crowd, and only a couple ever get the spotlight, especially after Shippuden starts. Shikamaru, Guy, Gaara, etc. get a little screen time, but rarely more than an episode or two. And that's a shame, because they all have such interesting powers and personalities. As far as the bigger properties go, I think One Piece, surprise surprise, does side characters better than a lot of shows, especially when talking about the shows that came out around the same time. It does help that I like Luffy more than Goku or Naruto, but the secondary characters, especially the Straw Hat crew, get a ton of screen time. The other Straw Hats almost sometimes feel like they're the protagonists. If you took out a lot of characters in other shows, the plot wouldn't really change that much, but take the Straw Hats away from One Piece and it just wouldn't work. They lean on each other and matter to each other in a tangible way. Luffy and the others care about each other not just because they're friends, but also because they genuinely believe they can't accomplish their goals without each other. This is shown multiple times throughout the story. Without Sanji, they would starve. Without Nami, they'd be lost. And without Luffy, they would be aimless. They depend on each other, and it makes them each more important to the viewer/reader. I hope going forward we see the non-main characters used effectively and not just shoved to the back. There are at least a couple reasons for hope, like The Promised Neverland, Chainsaw Man, and Jujutsu Kaisen, which all use their side characters in a way that actually matters to us and to the story, and it doesn't take hundreds of episodes to do it. I love Dragon Ball and Naruto, so I hope it doesn't seem like I'm just trying to duck on them. It's just that both have interesting side characters that are done really well, but in some cases they could use more screen time. I also just think it's interesting that so many people, including myself, seem to be drawn to these side characters. But that's about it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Tell me your favorite characters, etc. And make sure to like and subscribe. I hope everyone has a great day.